At this time, please join me in welcoming my friends Anurag Jain and Ross Perot Jr.
AK, thank you so much. Ross, thank you for being here.
Anurag, thank you.
Like AK said, you have spoken to this chamber before, about 15 years ago, and I apologize I couldn't be there that day. We were a mile away having our first baby. Again, I apologize.
No, I remember.
This time I said I'll get the ringside view, so I'm right here. But before we start talking, I want to talk about your experience in India. You know, you've done so many things with the country. You built a company there. Your dad, I think, is the father of the outsourcing business that a lot of us Indians I've learned from and got a lot of experience from. At one point, you had 20,000 people in India reporting to you. You've done real estate transactions. You worked with government officials. You and I went to meet Prime Minister Modi, and we want to bring the countries closer together. But I don't want to talk to you about any of that. What I want to talk to you about is your first visit to India. You landed in Delhi on September 13th, 1982, and you were promptly arrested. And I want to repeat that for the audience. Ross landed on September 13th, 1982 in Delhi, and he was arrested. What? And can you explain?
Anurag, thank you. And AK, it's great to be with you and the whole chamber. And I remember 15 years ago when you were out having the baby. So congratulations. And I feel very honored to be invited to come back and speak. But Anurag made a very interesting point that I haven't thought about, that on my very first trip to India, I was arrested on landing. And in 1982, I was flying a helicopter around the world, and I started off to fly a helicopter around the world on September 1st, 1982. And Jay Coburn and I were the first two men to fly a helicopter around the world. And this trip came together very quickly, but we were flying from Pakistan to India. And we had to fly a very strict air corridor from Karachi, Bombay, up to New Delhi, about 800 miles. And the helicopter only had 700 miles of range. And so the only way Jay and I could do the trip was we had to take off, and we basically cut the corner and flew through Indian Air Force training zones, which we didn't realize were there, on the way to Delhi. So about 30 minutes out from Delhi, we started getting radio calls, 3911 Zulu, our tail number. And they said, "What is your position?" And we gave them a fake position report. And then they said, "What is your exact latitude and longitude?" We gave them the fake latitude and longitude, realizing something was going on. These were not the normal calls. And so, as I said, about 30 minutes out from Delhi, we took all the charts, all the maps, we threw everything out the window. And when we landed, we were arrested because we violated the sacred airspace of India. And that was my first introduction to India.
Well, what a trip.
A great trip.
I want James to show us a little video about the trip, if you don't mind.
The United States has been a world leader in aviation, and I thought this was a record that we should have.
Two Dallas men left Love Field, intent on setting a world record in a helicopter.
The record circling the world in 30 days.
In August of 1982, a man who's now a good friend of mine, Dick Smith, who's Australian, took off to be the first man to fly a helicopter around the world. Had a big announcement in the newspaper, going to fly around the world. And it was very simple. I read it, and in my mind, this is what Americans did. You know, we're the ones that go out and set these big records. And so when I got back to work, there's a message from my dad, call me. So I called my dad, and he goes, "Did you see the paper?" I said, "I did." And he goes, "What do you think?" I said, "Dad, we got to go beat him."
That's how it all began. With only 13 days to prepare, Ross Perot Jr. and Jay Coburn left Dallas, Texas on September 1st. They flew a single-engine Bell Ranger to overtake an Australian who had already completed 24 days of flying in his own quest for the world record.
This is 1982, so the Cold War is still hot. And so this is what made the trip difficult, and this is why the trip had never been done before. Politics, because you couldn't get landing rights.
Because the Russians refused a refueling stop, Ross Perot Jr. will try to land his round-the-world helicopter on the heaving deck of a freighter.
We had to land on a container ship off the Russian coast. And we asked the Russians to let us in. They wouldn't let us fly through Russia. That was the difficult part, and that's the part that almost kept us from getting around the world.
Welcome home. How you doing? Well, great. You guys traveled. Hey, Doug, good to see you.
30 days after the trip began, Ross and Jay had circled the globe, flying over 26 countries and 22 seas and oceans in their tiny craft.
Several hundred people gathered to watch the historic event.
I thought it was very exciting. It brought chills to me when they landed. It really made me glad I'm American.
I spent 30 days while worrying about them. I'm glad they're home safely. I'm very proud.
A few weeks later, they received the FAA Gold Medal from President Reagan.
It was an amazing 60-day period, flying around the world and seeing the world at 500 feet. It is a truly unique experience.
Thanks to the efforts of Ross and Jay, another aviation first belongs to the United States.
Hey, James, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So, Ross, keeping with the India theme, you have an announcement that's close to the heart of Indians. You want to talk about that?
Well, I love to talk about it, but Anurag, I got to give you a lot of credit. And you've got to get, it's all my time I've spent in India is why we're doing this deal. And what we're announcing is our investment in the new U.S. Cricket League, and we'll be owning the Dallas cricket team, Texas Titans, Anurag and I, plus others. And the reason I'm investing in cricket and I'm supporting cricket, it's because of all the work I've done in India. I started in India in 1996, building our companies in India. And I was always stunned that our leadership team would disappear during all the big cricket matches. Yeah, there's nothing I could do to get them to break lock and come back to work. They had to watch cricket. And so within our team, I learned how to manage around it. But I also learned in negotiations, if I knew the other side was following a cricket match, I would start to drag out the negotiation knowing that they would get it done before that cricket match started. So I think the world of cricket, certainly the impact of cricket on our nation will be very strong. It is a critical sport for the world, and there's no reason we don't have outstanding cricket and cricket players in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and the United States. So, Anurag, it's because of you and my friendship in India that I'm investing in this great sport.
Well, thank you, Ross. We need you. We need people like you in the sport. I've also heard you're practicing a bowling arm. You want to keep these cricketers sharp.
Oh, I am. I want to be ready to go in case I'm needed.
Well, thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit of politics, right? So, over the last few generations, the last 10 years or so, I've seen the two countries come closer together. The presidents and the prime minister have gotten closer. And I also want to talk a little bit about immigration. So, immigration is really important. Legal immigration is really important to this crowd and to Indians in particular. The last 4 years, the immigration word has been a bit choppy. So talk to me about what you think is going to happen with the new administration in terms of relationship between U.S. and India, and talk a little bit about immigration and what you think about immigration in general.
Well, immigration is how this nation was built. It's a critical part of the history of the nation. It's a critical part of the future of the nation. And just focus on Indian immigration. Look at the impact India has had on the success of the United States. Look at the phenomenal entrepreneurs that have come to our country from India, built wonderful companies, and now have hired tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens to be in these companies. So immigration is important, and I think you'll continue to see very strong immigration from India and a very positive immigration environment for the talented men and women of India to come to our country, including my goal would be if you get a U.S. degree, you have an automatic green card. So all the Indian students in our country know they can stay in the nation, build their career, raise their family in the United States. That would add a huge amount to the United States, to our economy, our culture, and the values of our nation. So I'm very excited, very pro-immigration with India.
And do you think the two countries will continue to come close together with the new administration? I mean, what do you think?
Well, we have to. The two largest democracies in the world really have no choice. And the world needs the United States and India to have a very strong relationship. You saw how strong the relationship was with Modi and Trump. You saw how strong the relationship was starting with Bush in India. Then Obama in India continued it. I was just with the Secretary of Navy before I came to this event. And the Secretary of the Navy and I were talking about, he is now going to India, I think, next week. And so he is building U.S. Navy, U.S. and the Indian Navy relations like we've been building U.S. Air Force, Indian Air Force relations. So you'll see our militaries come together, our intelligence agencies come together. The people of India and the United States are already very close, and you'll continue to see that bond grow, and it'll be great for both our nations.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, your father stood for election a couple of times. I know you love this country. I know you're very close to the politics. You study it very, very well. So I've got to ask a question. And by the way, and the question, and you can answer it any way you want. But if you say yes, this would be a great place for you to make an announcement. Just so you know, this is a great audience. This is a great platform for you to say the right answer. Will you stand for something, and will you stand for office someday?
No, I don't plan on running for office. Now, my father told me after he ran for president, he said, don't get into this business. There are lots of ways you can serve your country. And I'm going to listen to his advice. But Anurag, I'm going to wait for you to run for office. So I'll be your first supporter when you run. How about that?
You turned that back on me, didn't you? James, do you want to play a video on business before we talk about the business segment?
Sometimes it takes a visionary to see what others can't see. At Hillwood, we bring unique and aspiring visions to life. Founded by Ross Perot Jr., Hillwood offers a full range of real estate services. From being a developer, investor, and advisor of commercial and industrial real estate developments across the nation and Europe, to creating master-planned residential communities for families to call home. We encourage collaboration and facilitate innovation, making each project something special and enduring, like Hillwood's Alliance, Texas, which has created 62,000 new jobs and generated $84 billion in local economic impact alone. We bring visions to life by building things that matter to everyone. Now that's something we all can be proud of.
Ross, 6 years ago, you started a business called Perot Jane, and it was a venture capital business, kind of different from all your other businesses. And you got into business with me, and I'm just wondering why? Why me? Why Perot Jane? What do you see in this?
Well, you and I have been friends and partners since 2003 when we acquired one of your companies. And I believe you're one of the great entrepreneurs in the United States. You're a great visionary. You know how to build companies, and you know how to motivate and lead people. And once we sold Perot Systems, I was getting out of touch with technology. And I felt like teaming with you, getting back into the venture capital business, staying close to the new technologies of the world. Number one, it'd be a great business together. But probably the most important is I wanted an excuse to hang out with you and be your partner again, because we did very well at Perot together. And now Perot Jane's been very successful.
Well, thank you so much, Ross. But you talked about innovation, you talked about new technology. So talk about your other businesses. Talk about how Hillwood is changing in the future. What do you think happens with technology? And also talk about DFW as a region, what's happening from your perspective.
Well, yeah, Hillwood is a nationwide real estate developer. We develop across the U.S. and we develop throughout Europe. And we're very focused on one day building our practice in India. So we want to continue to build our industrial logistics e-commerce practice all throughout India. And so very focused on doing that. But if you look at our growth today, it is technology. It is e-commerce. And we are building literally 15 to 20 million square feet of e-commerce buildings per year across the U.S. and throughout Europe. And so we are close to technology. We're on the leading edge of technology. We're working with the top technology companies in the world with their real estate needs. And so it is the future of our business, and we're very close to it. Certainly with my technology background, it helped us in the real estate world quite a bit. We just opened one of the largest data centers in the world for Facebook, a $2 billion data center. Well, I'm one of the few people probably you know, I grew up in data centers. I mean, I was running around data centers at 8 and 9 years old with my father. And so I've grown up in it and understand it. DFW is one of the great technology regions of the world. Our growth rate, even with COVID, continues unabated. We're adding 1 million people every 7 years to the market. Now, in the United States, those are big numbers. In India, these are still little numbers, but for our market, these are big numbers. We're about 8 million people today, and we're seeing more and more people moving in from around the country into Texas. The highest profile member that just joined our community was Elon Musk. He announced this week leaving California for Texas. You're seeing major corporations leaving California for Texas. Charles Schwab just announced their new headquarters with us, leaving San Francisco for our Circle T Ranch project. So we're seeing East Coast, West Coast, people moving in, and they're moving in, especially the great entrepreneurs are moving in, Anurag, because of economic freedom. We have very low tax in Texas. We have very fair regulation in Texas. If you come into our state, you can build your business and raise your family with minimal disruption from the government. That's very appealing for the entrepreneurs. That's why we have so many great Indian entrepreneurs now moving into our state. They want that freedom.
That's a great answer, Ross. Thank you so much. I'm going to change tracks just a little bit. This year has been hard for all of us, but I think last year was harder. And it was harder because we lost a great man. Your father was very important to us. He's done so much for the world. I think everybody in this building, in the city, has been touched by him in some way. It's even hard for me to say it, but it was a very, very important person that we lost. And I know you had a very special relationship with him. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it was a very difficult year losing my father. We were very blessed that we were given about 6 months notice. And the doctors told us he had about 6 months to live. And so we had a really, really great 6 months as a family with my father. And as I said in the funeral service, which was really true, my father and I, we talked so much that on one of our last visits together, we almost ran out of what we were going to say. We covered every topic. He told me how much he loved me. I told me how much I loved him. And I grew up in a family. I had 4 sisters, a mother, a grandmother, and an aunt. And so every day growing up, I was with my father. And it was just we were the 2 men at the end of the table with the household of ladies. And so we grew up in a wonderful environment, and literally we did everything together. I think of him every day. I miss him every day. I feel him every day, and his impact on us has been tremendous. And Anurag, he won't be forgotten.
Well, he won't be forgotten. Certainly won't be forgotten. But it's really good you got closure. And closure is so important. It's good you got the time.
Very important.
We all got the time. I spent time with him. We all got some time with him, and he was an amazing man, and he'll never be forgotten. So
well, you've got a beautiful photo with him.
I do.
You too. You too. About 2 weeks before he passed away.
Just perfect.
You two had a beautiful visit together.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross. It was a very important moment for me. I've got one question for you before I go to audience questions, and that really is, you've done so much. You've built companies, you've built nonprofit organizations, you've done diplomacy. You've had so many people work for you that work for you forever, like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. What words of wisdom and advice do you have for budding entrepreneurs or people in our community in this area?
I think, first of all, you have to really love the men and women you work with. It is your family. It is your work family. And being a Christian and raised in a Christian household with my parents, I mean, we learned, day one that we are all equal. We're all the same. No one's better than the other. And we learned the golden rule: treat each other like you want to be treated. So Anurag, I treat people the way I want to be treated. I treat people with respect, and everybody I work with has very unique gifts and talents, and it's up to me as a leader to give that person an environment to maximize their talents, their gifts, and maximize their success. And so I feel like it's my job to help everybody become successful and let them find their dream, their passion, to help them and their families.
Ross, we have all been honored working with you. It's been incredible. You've been a personal friend, a mentor. Our families go back together. Thank you for coming to meet my father-in-law when he was on his deathbed. You came all the way to India to see him. I really, really appreciate that. My family appreciates that. You've done a great job with the Indian community, with the DFW area. And running a little long, so we're not going to do the audience question. So unless you have anything else to say, I think.
Well, Anurag, thank you. And it's a great opportunity to talk to all my friends from India. And I hope this time next year we'll have an event in person. We'll have a dinner together and have a real conversation face-to-face in the old-fashioned way, which is what we're all hoping for very quickly. But Anurag, thank you, and thank you for your friendship.
Amen to that, Ross. Thank you for talking to the U.S. India Chamber. We really, really appreciate your friendship and your time.
I'm very honored. Thank you.